Part 1. My name is Evelyn Harper, and I was 68 years old the evening my son asked me to give up my future. Of course, he didn't use those words. He smiled, poured me a glass of water, and said, "Mom, we really need your help. If you had walked into that dining room, you would have seen what looked like the perfect American family. A beautiful 2-story home, 2 luxury SUVs in the driveway, fresh flowers on the kitchen island, the smell of roasted chicken filling the house, and my 10-month-old grandson sleeping peacefully upstairs. Everything looked perfect. Everything except the numbers. I've spent nearly 40 years as a forensic accountant. People think accounting is about math. It isn't. It's about behavior. Every dollar tells a story. Every payment leaves footprints, and lies are always more expensive than the truth. That's why I knew something was wrong before anyone said a single word. The invitation itself felt strange. Sunday dinner, 6 o'clock. It's important. My son, Daniel, only texted when he wanted something. When he simply missed me, he called. On the passenger seat beside me sat a worn leather folder. Inside were refinancing documents the bank had mailed me earlier that week. 3 years before, I'd helped Daniel and his wife qualify for their mortgage. The bank wouldn't approve the loan without another guarantor, so I signed. I also lent them $90,000 for the down payment. At the time, I believed I was investing in my family's future. Now those same papers had come back asking for my signature again. I hadn't read them carefully yet. I planned to do it after dinner. Funny how life changes your schedule. When I pulled into the driveway, I noticed another car, Vanessa's mother's sedan. That wasn't part of the invitation. Neither was my daughter, Emma, whose car was already parked beside it. Family meeting, not family dinner. I took a slow breath before walking inside. Vanessa greeted me with a smile so polished it looked rehearsed. "Evelyn, we're so happy you came." She hugged me, lightly, the kind of hug people give when they're trying to sell you something. Dinner started with harmless conversation. Daniel talked about work, another promotion, another bonus, another successful quarter. Combined, they earned close to $300,000 a year, an impressive number, especially for people who were about to tell me they couldn't afford something. While everyone talked, my eyes wandered across the kitchen. That's another habit accounting taught me. Observe first, speak later. A yellow note attached to the refrigerator caught my attention. Montessori Academy enrollment deposit. $5,000. Due Friday. Interesting. Very interesting. If money was so tight, why choose the most expensive daycare in the county? I said nothing. People reveal far more when they believe you're not paying attention. Dessert hadn't even reached the table when Daniel cleared his throat. The room became unusually quiet. "Mom?" He glanced at Vanessa. She gave him a small nod. "We've been talking about Theo's future." "I'm listening." Daniel folded his hands. "We've done the math." There it was. Whenever someone says they've done the math, I like to see the spreadsheet. "Daycare is unbelievably expensive," he continued. "We just can't afford it." I looked at him, then at Vanessa, then at the marble kitchen island worth more than my first apartment. Finally, I asked, "You earn nearly $300,000 a year. So explain something to me. How exactly can you not afford daycare?" No one answered my question. Not immediately. Daniel looked at Vanessa. Vanessa looked at her mother. Her mother gave the kind of smile people wear when they're about to explain why someone else should sacrifice. "It's not really about the money," Vanessa finally said. There it was. 5 seconds earlier, they couldn't afford daycare. Now it wasn't about money at all. I had heard that trick before. People change the subject when the facts stop helping them. "So, what is it about?" I asked. "It's about family," she replied. "A child deserves to grow up with his grandmother instead of strangers." Her mother nodded immediately. "That's how we raised our children. Family comes first." I folded my hands. "I agree." 4 faces relaxed at once, then I continued. "But love and full-time labor aren't the same thing." The room became quiet again. Daniel leaned forward. "Mom, you're thinking about retiring anyway." "Am I?" "Well, eventually." I smiled. "Last Thursday, I helped save 40 jobs. A manufacturing company was weeks away from shutting down. They asked me to audit their finances. I found nearly $500,000 in unnecessary expenses. The business survived." Does that sound like someone who's finished working? Daniel looked down at his plate. Vanessa answered instead. "You've worked your whole life. Now it's time to enjoy your family." Enjoy. Interesting choice of words, because what they described wasn't retirement. It was unpaid employment, 5 days a week, 8 or 10 hours a day, no salary, no benefits, no vacation, no choice. I picked up my glass. Let's pretend I say yes. Everyone looked up. Daniel almost smiled. "What happens after I retire?" "You'll stay here with Theo while we work," Vanessa said quickly. "You'd have your own room. You wouldn't have to worry about anything." Own room. She made it sound generous. I already owned my own house, completely paid off. I didn't need a room in someone else's home. "What about my clients?" Daniel shrugged. "You could let them go." 40 years, reduced to 1 sentence. You can always find hobbies. Hobbies. Apparently, that's what my career had become. Across the table, my daughter Emma finally spoke. "What if Mom doesn't want to retire?" Silence. Vanessa answered without looking at her. "Sometimes we all have to make sacrifices." Emma looked directly at me. I recognized that expression. She was uncomfortable, nervous, almost afraid. I'd seen that face before, usually when she knew something but wasn't ready to say it. I made a mental note. Then I asked another question. "If daycare costs around $2,000 a month?" Daniel nodded. "How much are both of your car payments?" Nobody answered. I noticed 2 new SUVs outside. Daniel cleared his throat. "About $1,400. "And the country club membership?" Vanessa blinked. "Excuse me?" "I noticed the logo on your golf bag." "How much?" No answer. "I imagine around 800? Still silence. "What about vacations?" "Subscriptions?" "Dining out?" The temperature in the room changed. Nobody likes detailed questions when they're hiding behind general statements. Daniel sighed. "Mom, that's not fair." "No? You asked me to give up my career." "I simply asked about your budget." His face turned red. Vanessa crossed her arms. "We've earned our lifestyle." "I'm sure you have. But don't confuse 'can't afford' with 'don't want to cut back.'" That landed exactly where I intended. Her mother finally interrupted. "You accountants only see numbers." I smiled politely. "No, I see priorities." Another long silence. Then Daniel changed the subject. "There's actually one more thing." Of course there was. I had been waiting for it all evening. He looked almost embarrassed. "The bank sent you some paperwork, right? There it is. The real reason for dinner." I believe they did. "We're refinancing." I know. We just need your signature. Need, not would appreciate. Need. Vanessa leaned forward. It'll lower our payments. It'll make everything easier, especially if you decide to retire. There it was. Not one request. 2. They wanted my time, and they wanted my name. The pieces started fitting together. Suddenly, daycare wasn't the main topic anymore. It had simply been the emotional introduction. The real objective was sitting inside the leather folder beside my chair. I looked at Daniel. His hands were shaking. He wasn't acting. He really was under pressure. But pressure doesn't excuse manipulation. I reached down and placed my hand on the folder. For a moment, everyone watched it, almost nervously. I'll review everything, I said calmly. Daniel exhaled in relief. So, you'll sign? I said I'll review it. They're not the same thing. Vanessa forced a smile. How long do you need? A week. A week, she repeated. I don't sign financial documents over dessert. Nobody laughed. I stood up. I should head home. Daniel walked me to the door. Outside, under the porch light, he lowered his voice. Mom, I really need this. I looked at him for several seconds. When you were 12 years old, I said quietly, you asked me why I never made decisions when I was emotional. He frowned. You remember what I told you? He shook his head. Numbers don't care how we feel. I've lived by that rule for 40 years. I'm not going to stop tonight. He didn't answer. I drove home with the folder still unopened, but something told me. Whatever was inside those papers, it was far bigger than daycare. To be continued. I barely slept that night. The leather folder sat on my kitchen table exactly where I had left it. For years, paperwork had never intimidated me. People did. Numbers were honest. People edited the truth. At 6 the next morning, coffee in one hand and reading glasses in the other, I opened the refinance package. The first few pages were exactly what I expected. Income verification, mortgage balance, employment history, bank statements, nothing unusual. Then I opened my laptop. Whenever something feels wrong, I build a spreadsheet. It's how my brain works. 1 column for income, 1 for expenses, 1 for debt, 1 for risk. By 8 o'clock, I had already reconstructed most of Daniel's household budget. Their combined after-tax income averaged just over $16,000 every month. It was a remarkable salary, more than enough to raise 1 child comfortably. So why were they desperate? I kept reading. Mortgage, $6,000. 2 luxury SUVs, $1,400. Country club membership, $800. Streaming subscriptions, dining, travel, credit cards, home improvements, designer furniture, everything expensive, everything optional, except one expense, daycare. I searched for it twice. Nothing. Not a single payment. I leaned back in my chair. That made no sense. The entire conversation at dinner had revolved around daycare, yet there wasn't a single daycare payment anywhere in the statements. People don't argue over expenses that don't exist, unless the expense is only a story. I kept digging. Years of forensic accounting had taught me something simple. Large transactions rarely expose a lie. Small recurring payments usually do. That's where habits live. That's where secrets hide. Halfway through the 3rd month statement, I finally saw it. Every month, exactly the same amount, $1,500. Same date, same account, same reference code, no company name, no explanation, just a recurring transfer. 12 months, without interruption. I highlighted every payment in yellow. Then I totaled them, $18,000 a year, almost exactly what they claimed they couldn't afford. Interesting, very interesting. Whoever was receiving that money wasn't a bank. It wasn't a car company. It wasn't a daycare center. It was a personal account. I wrote one question in the margin of my spreadsheet. Who gets paid $1,500 every month? Before I could answer it, my phone rang. It was Emma. "Mom." Her voice sounded different, quiet, careful. "Can I come over?" "Of course." She arrived 30 minutes later, wearing hospital scrubs. She looked exhausted. She wrapped both hands around a mug of coffee without taking a single sip. "I've been thinking about Sunday." "So have I." She looked toward the folder. "You opened it." "I did." She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "I need to tell you something." I waited. "When I was babysitting Theo last month." She stopped. I overheard Vanessa talking on the phone. Talking to who? "I don't know. I only heard part of the conversation." "What did you hear?" Emma swallowed. "She mentioned your house." I didn't react. Years of interviewing people had taught me never to interrupt. She said, Emma closed her eyes, trying to remember every word. "Once my mother-in-law moves in, we'll list the property in the spring." For several seconds, neither of us spoke. "Are you sure?" She nodded slowly. I wanted to believe I'd misunderstood. But after Sunday, I don't think I did. A strange calm settled over me. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity. I turned back to the paperwork. If Emma had heard the truth, the documents would prove it. Paper almost always does. I began reading every page again, this time more slowly, line by line, word by word, until finally, there it was, buried near the back of the refinance application. A supplemental financial projection. Most people would have skipped it. I didn't. One line immediately caught my attention. Projected rental income. I frowned. Daniel didn't own rental property. I kept reading. Then my stomach tightened. The address listed beneath the heading wasn't theirs. It was mine. My house. The home I'd spent 27 years paying off. The house where my children grew up. The house I still lived in. According to their refinance application, it would soon become rental income. I read the note beside it. Available beginning Q2, following family relocation. Family relocation. That wasn't a financial term. That was me. Without asking. Without discussing it. Without my permission. They had already included my house in their financial future, as if my decision had already been made, as if I had already agreed to move into their home, as if my life had become another asset on their balance sheet. I slowly removed my glasses. Suddenly, the entire dinner made perfect sense. They didn't simply want free childcare. They wanted everything. My retirement, my time, my signature, my house, my equity, my future. I looked at the spreadsheet glowing on my computer screen. For the first time in 40 years, the numbers made me feel something they never had before. Betrayal. Not because strangers had tried to use me, because my own family had already built a future that depended on taking away mine. I closed the folder, picked up my phone, and quietly called the bank. "I have a question about this refinance application." The woman on the other end verified my identity, then answered the only question that mattered. "Mrs. Harper, without your signature, this loan cannot be approved." I thanked her, hung up, looked back at the folder, and for the first time since Sunday, I smiled. Because now, I wasn't walking into another family dinner. I was walking into a meeting, and unlike everyone else at that table, I would be bringing evidence.